William Nicholls here, and today I'm going to share with you a deep dive into how to overcome the state of depression. So depression is something that impacts millions and millions of people around the world. It's something that almost every human has experienced at some point in their lives. And it's something that, with a little bit of understanding and a whole lot of commitment and persistence, anybody can overcome. Okay? And so we're going to get into it. I'm going to use my handy dandy whiteboard here to explain some really important understandings, because through understanding we can make change. Okay? So depression is a stagnant emotion. All right, it's an emotional haze. If you've ever been depressed or really depressed, you know it feels like everything's just slow, everything's heavy. It's like you're holding on to all this baggage. It feels like you're just like dragging around heavy clouds and weight with you everywhere you go, and things sort of feel numb, right? Everything just sort of feels like bland and numb, and everything just kind of blends together, right? So with depression, this might sound a little kind of crazy, to be honest, but one of the first things that we must do is to recognize that we have depression, that we are in a state of depression. And I like to say in a state of depression rather than have depression, because depression, you are not in depression, right? Depression is a state that we may or may not find ourselves in at certain points of life, but depression is not who you are. And so the reason I say you must be aware that you're experiencing depression is because a lot of people just say, I'm depressed, right? Saying I'm depressed is one of the worst things that you can say to yourself, because it's actually not true. You feel depressed. You feel depression, right? You are not depression. And this may not seem like much to those who are in a state of depression, but it is. It's a big deal. It's a huge deal for you to shift from the mindset of I am depressed to I feel depressed. Because once you make that shift, now you can change, right? If you just say I am depression, well, how can you change what you are, right? How can you change who you are? It's who you are. You've claimed it. And when you say I feel, well, we feel lots of things, right? We feel sadness, we feel joy, we feel grief, we feel guilt, we feel all sorts of emotions at all times. I mean, we're human beings. We have a huge plethora of emotions. And so saying I feel as opposed to, I'm depressed, I'm anxious, I'm this, I'm that, it's a small little subtle shift to your mindset that starts to open up a lot more freedom. So that's step one, is making the transition from I am to I feel. Okay? That's number one. And then from there, we need to understand a few things. So, as I said a bit earlier, okay, you can kind of see apathy and depression. Okay, I'll just wipe this out for a second here. I'll just Okay, apathy and depression are some of the slowest moving emotions, right? You think when you're in a state of apathy, you don't care about anything, you don't care about anyone. When you're in a state of depression, I mean, it's pretty much the same thing, right? You don't really care about anything. Anyone is like, you're kind of in this state of, just not caring. Just there's a state of stagnant energy that happens there. And so when you move up a little bit, you get sadness, right? And when you move up from there even more, then you get, and this is a big turning point for people after sadness, is anger. I don't know if you'll be able to see that on the whiteboard very well, but anger is an interesting emotion. It's very, very misunderstood. A lot of people misunderstand anger, and there's this sort of idea that we should just never be angry. And I think that's sort of a bit of nonsense. You know, to say that we should never be angry is just not true, and it's all dependent on where we're at emotionally. So what I'm sort of building here is called the emotional guidance scale. I didn't create it, but it's sort of the frequency or how fast the emotions move. So you have apathy and depression is very slow, stagnant. And ironically, even the highest emotions are also sort of slow and stagnant. They're not in different ways. And then sadness is a little bit above apathy and depression because at least you're starting to feel things now. Usually when you're depressed too, it's like you kind of got the blues, but it's just numb. You know, you don't really feel much. So then we have anger, and anger is a very powerful emotion because it's a very fast emotion, right? I mean, everybody can think of a time when they've acted upon anger and it hasn't really gone your way, right? Because you've made some mistakes by choosing to act in a state of anger. Now, anger is a powerful emotion because it propels us into action, and action is good when you're in a stagnant state like depression or apathy. So sometimes the best thing that you can do in a state of apathy or depression is to get angry. Get angry at whatever. But allow yourself to experience the anger, because what emerges from that is that the emotions start to move. And when you're moving energy, you're not letting it just stagnate and sit like it does down here. And you can kind of see it like going like this. Okay? And then after anger, now we might get into some of the positive emotions or the neutral ones like contentment. Okay, and then maybe happiness, happy, and then finally up here is like bliss, right? So, you know, if you think about bliss and depression, they're very different experiences, but they have approximately the same movement. Bliss, though, is not stagnation, is actually expansion, so it operates differently than depression. But they are both slow-moving emotions, you know? And so we can't judge things based off of, you know, how much they flow. But we rather have to just look at our situation and say, okay, I'm down here, and I want to move myself up, right? You want to move yourself up out of this state. And so realistically, any emotion other than apathy and depression is better than apathy and depression. Even if it's a negative emotion like anger or sadness, right? And this is just a sort of general, very basic diagram here to explain some of these ideas. But it's the general overview is this. When you're depressed or you're in a really crazy state of depression, you're not doing much. You know, you're stagnant. Everything's stagnant there. And because of that, you need to do something, anything, to create some movement. And so whether that be emotional movement, like we've seen here, or, let me erase this all again here, or, you know, you can also create some action habits. Okay? Now, habits are your best friend and your worst friend because we are a product of our habits. So if you're in a state of depression, it's because you've created habits that have led you to this state. And by habits, I don't necessarily mean physical activities, so to speak, although that could be a contributing factor. Physical activities like drugs and alcohol tend to lead to a spiraling depression. But habits are also mental habits. What you think about, where your mind goes, how in control you are of your own mind. So if you have the mental habit of thinking about how all the things in your life are going wrong, well, that's a mental habit that will inevitably lead to depression, right? If you have a habit of, just pondering all those past ideologies, those negative past scenarios that you've experienced in your life, if that's a mental habit, then that's going to inevitably lead to a state of depression. How could it not? And so I want you to understand that we become the byproduct of whatever our habits are. If you have good habits, good mental and emotional and physical habits, then the byproduct of that is that your life is going to look good. You're going to feel good. You're going to think clear. You're physically going to look good. You're going to feel good in your body. You're success-wise, you're gonna be good. You're going to be making the sort of lifestyle that you want to create for yourself. You're going to have the social interactions that you want for yourself. You're going to have the relationships that you want for yourself, the career, etc. Everything comes back down to this. We are a product of our habits. If we have bad habits, it will inevitably lead to bad things in our life, things that we don't want, like depression. But it could also lead to other things, like addictions, and more fear, and living in anxiety, etc. So, to give you some practical advice here, some practical tips here, okay? You need to start creating new habits for yourself. So if you find yourself in this state of depression, you need to start creating better habits for yourself. And the way that you do this is, habits are not formed through motivation. Habits are formed through discipline, which means that discipline means that I'm going to do this regardless of how I feel. So a lot of us think that we need to wait until we are motivated to take action. And that's not how life works, my friends. So what you really need is discipline. And so what that means is commitment to yourself, to your habits. So let's say you're someone who just doesn't even know where to begin. You feel like your life's kind of spiraled out of control. You feel stuck, you feel stagnant, you feel like you've been in this depression bubble for a long time. One of the best things that you can do is just to go on a daily walk. Just go outside. It doesn't matter if it's cold, if it's hot, if it's rainy, if it's not. Committing that every day you go for a walk for 5-10 minutes. Maybe it's just around the block. Maybe it's to your local park and back. Maybe it's a 20-minute walk if you enjoy walking a lot, or 30 or 40 or 50 minutes. But just creating a small commitment like that of every day I'm going for my walk. Maybe it's in the morning to start the day in a more clear way. Maybe it's night to unwind before bed. Maybe it's both. But a walk is a good example of a healthy practice that's not only good for you because you're walking and you're activating and moving your body, but also good in the sense that you're creating a new routine for yourself. And you're transforming the way that you subconsciously see yourself, which is very, very important here. Another thing that you can do is just to move your body every day. Maybe that's working out for, 20, 30 minutes a day. Maybe that's doing, 50 push-ups a day. Maybe that's going for a run. Whatever it is, committing to taking any action that disrupts the routine of where you currently are is one of the greatest ways that you can get out of this rut, okay, that is depression. So we've talked about you have to be aware that you are in this state of depression, and you have to shift the mindset from I'm depressed to I feel depressed, right? That's very, very important to start. Then you need to recognize that depression is stagnation. And so feeling anything other than depression is a good starting place, even if it's not a happy emotion, even if it's anger or sadness. It's a good starting place. And then you need to take some action, and you need to do that every day. It doesn't matter if you don't feel like it. You're not going to always want to feel like going for a walk. You're not going to always want to feel like going to the gym. You're not going to always want to feel like doing push-ups. In fact, you probably seldom will, if ever, but it doesn't matter, because we're not relying on motivation to get us out of this state. We're creating new habits, and we're cultivating discipline, and we're making a commitment with ourselves, right? And so that's what really matters, is getting out of this depressed state requires you to be aware. It requires you to start to take personal accountability for the habits that have gotten you to this state. And then from there, it's now taking action to change those habits. And by changing those habits, the byproduct is you change your subconscious mind, which innately makes you feel much better. Okay? So, this may all sound simple in theory, right? And that's because it is. The difficulty is that we're chasing all these sort of crazy solutions and knickknacks and tricks and pills and magic solutions. There's no magic solution that pulls you out of a hole. Okay? You know what pulls you out of the hole? Yourself. Pulling yourself out inch by inch, foot by foot, day by day, minute by minute, out of that state. And when you do that, you find that your life begins to change dramatically. But it starts with recognizing just these basic understandings, right? The basic understanding that I am not depression, I feel depression. It's a small little nuance that will radically shift how you feel. It'll radically shift your life, and it actually opens up the freedom to now go and make changes to that. It is a very simple shift to recognize that feeling angry is better than feeling depressed. A lot of people don't think that's the case, but it is. Now, just to reiterate in regards to anger, anger should not be acted on from that place of anger, right? But anger should inspire you to take a hard look at where you're at right now, where you want to go, and feeling that frustration for the fact that you're not there yet should invoke a deep desire to get to that goal, whatever that goal may be. And once again, habits. Habits themselves are simple. They are. But they require you to take action. They require you to be disciplined. They require you to cultivate these qualities, commitment and discipline, in order to achieve them, right? If you want to change your habits, you must start with the daily actions that you do each and every day, and ensuring that those daily actions are cultivating really good habits that are going to get you the outcomes that you want. Now, some people may be saying, okay, well, I'm depressed, or I experience depression, or I feel depression. I'm not going to say I am depressed, Will. I feel depression now. Okay, good. But I don't have any goals. I don't have any direction in life. I don't know where I want to go. I don't know what I want to do. Right? Start with small things. Right now you may not have any purpose in your life. And maybe right now your purpose is to get up, to survive the day, and to go on a walk. Maybe that's what your purpose is today. Right? That's fine. That's a starting point. We all have to start somewhere. Right? Maybe your purpose is taking care of your child, or maybe your purpose is taking care of your pet, your dog or your cat, giving love to them and feeding them and watering them. Maybe your purpose is you don't have any pets or kids or a partner, and you're just feeding your plants, you're watering your plants. Whatever it may be, find purpose through creating tasks for yourself, things to do that give you a sense of meaning. And eventually, the more that you do them, the more better habits you'll be cultivating for yourself. And the better habits you cultivate for yourself, the more clarity you have. The more disciplined you are, and the more clarity you have, the more you start to unlock things in your brain where you start to think about what it is that you really, really want. Right? And so you have to start here. And if you're in a really, big state of depression, you must start here. If you're not in a total state of depression, and you're someone who is, has pulled themselves out of that major depressive cloud, but you notice that, your habits are still not that good, you really don't have purpose, and you want to change that, you want to discover what that is, and start making changes and creating good habits, mental, emotional, physical, to live a life of purpose, live with direction, live with clarity, live with focus. And I encourage you to click the link below in this video to learn more about the Odyssey, which is designed exactly for that. But if you're someone who's really, really depressed, and you're really in that state of depression and you're watching this, follow these steps. This is the starting point. You need this before you can even think about, your higher, greater purpose. You create purpose initially through the small, little baby steps that you take to start moving you out of this sort of stagnant life that is depression. So, I encourage you to try this. Don't take my word for it. Try it out yourself. Actually try it. Don't just watch the video, try it for a day and say it doesn't work. Try it out over 30, 60, 90 plus days. Every day. Do it. Do it. Do it. Be ye doers. Alright? And let me know what you think. Make sure you like and subscribe, and I appreciate you taking the time to watch this. I look forward to being able to share more videos with you in the future.